I'm Jim Rimbach, president of CX Global Media and host of the Customer Service Weekly podcast powered by PACE, the official podcast of National Customer Service Week, where our purpose is to help you ignite CX celebration all year. Each episode, I meet with senior leaders from top brands as they share their story on how they recognize and lead the people and solutions that help their organizations to deliver a customer experience that separates their organization from others, so you can ignite your own CX celebration. And now, on to the show. Okay, CX Igniters, today I'm excited because I actually have somebody on the show today who is going to give us some insight into what I discovered was an absolutely phenomenal employee engagement, employee development program, system, and framework. And I have Raz Barnwell, who is the Senior Director of the Center of Support for Coca-Cola Consolidated in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was really blessed to have the opportunity to meet who she actually has the opportunity to replace because he moved up to bigger and better things, Joe Rogers, a while back. And I'm really excited to have this opportunity to discuss Coca-Cola Consolidated and the impact that they're having on their customers and quite frankly, people who are in Coca-Cola, not just for Coca-Cola Consolidated, but actually the entire network. Raz Barnwell, thanks for joining us.
I was super excited to be here, so thank you for the invite, Jim.
Oh, you're welcome. And, now I know a little bit about you, but all of us need to know a little bit more who are listening and watching. So if you could tell us a little bit about you, your role, and what you do at Coca-Cola Consolidated, I think that would be very helpful.
Sure, I'd love to. So Raz Barnwell, I've been in the contact center industry, I'd say, for maybe around 18 years. So I've had a variety of different roles, but I've had the pleasure of leading Coke Consolidated's contact center it's a whole full year now, but I've been in the Consolidated family for about 14 years. So majority of my work life has been with Coca-Cola Consolidated. We focus primarily on business-to-business sales in our center of support. So business-to-business sales and operational support for our field teams. We do field, customer and consumer calls. And during my tenure of, 14 years with Consolidated, I've held about 6 or 7 various positions from frontline agent to mid-level supervisor, senior manager. And as I mentioned earlier, I now serve about 200 teammates in the role of senior director for the Center of Support. And most recently, just a few months ago, actually, we're now multi-site.
So when you say, business to business, people may not really understand what that means because, you have a lot of different outlets, let's just say, and they actually serve the end users. Kind of give us an understanding of what that means.
Of course. So we probably, while we have several different types of customers that we would consider, majority for what the Center of Support, who I lead, my organization, we support customers like amusement rec accounts. So think of if you go to a Carowinds and they're serving Coca-Cola products. If you go to like a restaurant and they're serving Coke products, or an at-work location, maybe where you're at if you're not working remote amidst this COVID environment. If you have Coca-Cola products for purchase, then potentially there's someone at your establishment that partners with us to where we have some type of agreement where you're serving and selling our products and you're purchasing directly from us. So we deliver on the red truck that pulls up to your establishment, and then you in turn sell those products to your consumers.
And when I start thinking about, Coca-Cola Consolidated, and to me, it doesn't matter whether it's the business to consumer or the business to business. I mean, you guys are doing some really incredible work in regards to, the engagement and the development of both employees and staff.
Absolutely. I'd say Coke Consolidated is a very unique company just in who we are, our purpose and our culture, what we represent. We're really around, serving others, pursuing excellence. And, obviously growing profitably, but one of our purpose statements, which is very bold, is to honor God in all that we do. And so we really do try to carry that out in just in general when you talk about the customer experience, but our internal teammates and how we groom and grow folks from within. So it's a phenomenal company to be a part of.
So what has been some of the things that you guys have done in the past in order to be able to celebrate and appreciate, Customer Service Week?
Yeah, so man, I'd say there's definitely been evolution, if you will, for how we've celebrated Customer Service Week from, simple luncheons many years ago, many moons ago, to as of recently, getting creative in the COVID environment. I'll say it starts, I think, twofold. We approach it now from an employee-led activities category, and then also from a leadership appreciation. So from an employee-led activities perspective, I think it's important that you empower teammates, you hear their voice, and you want them to provide what's relevant from a reward perspective, from an engagement perspective, and how we celebrate them. And so we do have one employee-led team called our Open Happiness, pun intended, in relation to Coca-Cola, but our Open Happiness team. So they helped us celebrate themselves and their teammates through gamification. We had intentional strategy for minimizing call volume so that we could do some offline activities. Some crossword puzzles, some team challenges. We've rewarded sporadically through like DoorDash and Uber Eats, to spotlight CX, what we call red surveys, right execution daily surveys, which really kind of falls into that customer experience category for, quality listening to what our teams are doing. Customer delights, we do recognize when a customer initiates an excellent experience, we kind of go above and beyond to recognize that through our team. Also share one thing, Jim, is our mission within the Center of Support is literally to create amazing, memorable experiences for our customers and consumers that drive profitability through first response resolution. So when you think about, I talked about employee-led activities, when you think about the leadership appreciation element of Customer Service Week, the way that we bring this mission to fruition is through three things. It's extraordinary time investment with our team, providing deliberate, granular messaging and development to our team, and then blinding spotlight of recognition. During Customer Service Week, it's more than imperative, and not just during that week, but really throughout the year, that blinding spotlight of recognition, the small moments that we create with customers, all of those things are spotlighted so that folks, even if they're not a stellar, top performer that's always, doing, amazing things in sales, we still recognize that each interaction you have with our customer is critical. And we want to take the time to recognize when that customer recognizes you. And so I think we've gotten pretty creative in that space from both an employee-led engagement perspective and how our leaders recognize the team.
Well, okay. Thank you for sharing all that. Also, it leads me to want to have other people get some insight into those other teams. You said one of our teams is our happiness team. You guys have other teams. If you could kind of talk about those a little bit.
Sure. We have a few other teams. First, the Open Happiness team, it's kind of like the fun at work team. So finding small things to celebrate. We're just wrapping up some celebration around, National Heritage, Hispanic Heritage Month. So we did some creative things in that space. They'll find Happy Donut Day, Happy Cookie Day, whatever that is. I'm not sure what today is, but I'm sure there's some branding that they're sending out. So that's our fun at work team. We do have a team dedicated to stewardship, and that's our Coke Cares team. It really is, well grounded in, like I mentioned earlier, our purpose and culture and who we are as a consolidated organization. So, finding different platforms, whether it's providing school supplies. Obviously, we're coming up on the holiday season. So this team really looks for opportunities for us to share either our time, serve through our time, serve through financial gains or other means to enrich our community. We do have a professional development, and it's really more a personal and professional development team, and that's called our Learn and Lead team. And so really they focus on, there's a lot of different elements that kind of fall into that. So when you think about professional development and career pathing, being intentional in your business acumen, how you learn, how you engage with other teammates who may have moved on beyond the position that you're in and been promoted to other positions. How do we, circle back around and learn, learn from them? So we bring those types of teammates and alumni back to the center. But we also do some personal grooming as well. So financial health and wellness, we've brought in experts from banks to help provide analysis for, let's say, your credit report, or just, other elements that, help you in your personal life. And again, these are employee-led teams. So our frontline employees are actually engaging these other vendors to, to help and partner to showcase these resources to our teammates. And then finally, we do have, we have a Live Positively team. And so the Live Positively team is really about health and wellness in mind and body, and we're being a brand ambassador for Coca-Cola. So a lot of times when people hear Coke, they think, soft drinks, they think Coke, Diet, Sprite, Coke, all of these other elements, but there's so many other brands that we have and that we embody that really do promote health and wellness. So you think about Smart Water or Body Armor. You may not be aware of Core Power, which is a protein drink. So how do we, serve as a brand ambassador and for these brands that we sell and love so much, but also what are some activities, physical activities, nutrition that we can incorporate into our day-to-day that embody wellness. So that's our Live Positively team. And then we have a safety team, and it's just literally team safety. And it's all about that. We're a standalone site. Now we have, a couple of other sites. And so we want our teams to be safe while they're here at work. You spend a great deal of time at work if you're not remote, but we do have teams rotating in. But they promote safety here at the site, just, general things like we have some CPR certified teammates. If we have a fire alarm, which actually we did last week, exiting, getting folks out of the building, but also providing safety tips for things that matter to you in your personal life. So potentially we're going to kick off holiday season and you're maybe hanging lights. What are some best practices for doing that? So holiday season, being safe with lights, just all types of awareness, if you will, in your personal life and professional life. Team safety is here to promote just that.
Well, I'd imagine that team has been quite busy here lately. Now, you mentioned something about teams rotating in.
Yep.
If you could, I assume that's because of all of the COVID and the restrictions in regards to the amount of people you can have in a particular building. And so tell us about how you guys have had to adjust because you're going back, to the office.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. It's definitely, COVID has definitely created some impact for our lives. So normally we have on any given day, up to 250 teammates on site. But obviously being that we want to socially distance and, incorporate all elements of CDC guidelines and recommendations into our day of life, we've changed our team to where they rotate on site based on an ABCD schedule. So we have 4 different schedules. And each teammate is assigned to a group. And so by the week, a different group will rotate and physically be on site to complete their job. And the remainder of the month, they are working remote from home. So they're virtual. All of our teammates do have laptops. We had already deployed that as a part of our business continuity planning. And so it just kind of worked out. But any given day, we have about 35% of our teammates on site. And then we also require, as we have team meetings, weekly team meetings, or what we call huddles, we do require cameras are on, so that virtual engagement, so the team still gets to see each other, even though 25% of them will be on site and the remaining will be working remote.
So I would dare to say, when you start thinking about adjusting and talking about all these different teams, there's been a lot of that has gone on. And sometimes, you go down a particular path. It's like, oh, that wasn't as good. So when you think about celebrating Customer Service Week, you think about these 5 teams, is there something that you used to do before that you're not going to do anymore?
I thought about this for a little bit. I don't know that there's anything that we've done previously that we wouldn't do again, outside of just making sure that leadership involvement is just as heavy as the teammate engagement to capture what's important to you. How do you like to be recognized? What's relevant when we're doing that recognition, so that we're just we're very intentional about it, and the employees come out feeling celebrated, which is super important. So just keeping in tune to what the leadership involvement looks like and the employee voice. I'd say don't lose sight of that.
Well, I would dare to say, when you start talking about those 5 teams and you start talking about your focus on doing the right thing and having that impact internally and externally, there's some things that kind of stand out as being the most powerful. You may have just mentioned it right there, but if you could talk about the one thing that absolutely makes a significant difference, what would it be?
The one thing that makes a significant difference for Customer Service Week, or you just mean teammates in general?
Teammates in general. So when you start talking about delivering an excellent customer experience for you guys, what would you say? It's like, man, this is kind of something that really makes a difference for us.
Yeah, honestly, I think it goes back to the 3 pillars that I discussed that help align the mission, that align to our mission around the extraordinary time investment, the deliberate, granular messaging and development, and blinding spotlight of recognition. If I had to pick one out of those 3, I'd say maybe it starts with the deliberate, granular messaging. But honestly, it's a tie between that and the time, because you have to invest the time with our team. If that's not a part of your model, if you're constantly just telling, no matter how detailed the message is, if you're telling without the time, you're not going to see the execution and the results come to fruition in those conversations that our teammates have with our customers. So, and then, the messaging piece, why it still speaks to me, is some of the key parts of that phrase is granular. I think a lot of times we share, but we give a top line view or a summary or a generic amount of information and then expect excellence in the execution. You can't if you haven't really dived down into and honed into the details. And that may go with demonstrating. And so really the combination of the time and the granular messaging, I think it's key to that customer experience element.
Well, thanks for sharing. Well, on the flip side, it gets you to thinking that, okay, those things make an impact. And there are a lot of things out there in regards to, this is what you should do. And this is what a lot of people do. But, you may look at some of those things and say, yeah, not so much. I don't believe in it. So is there kind of a myth or misconception that kind of stands out to you that, you've really found doesn't make a difference in the customer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, the myth is that we think our customers know and understand our CX model. And, that's just my perspective. But, just because we have an intent towards CX, that doesn't necessarily translate into a healthy experience for our customers. So intent is not execution. The customer journey, their experience is really around navigating this undercurrent, or kind of like a push against the tide of our internal business processes and our motives. And so is their journey thrilling? Is it too scary? Is it boring? Is it calm? Find out. One of the things that I challenge all leaders out there is, do you call yourself? Like, do you actually call into your contact center as a consumer or as a customer? And do you walk through that end-to-end journey without disclosing who you are or, the fact that you actually work there? Do you understand that journey from the customer lens? Have you navigated it truly in their shoes? I know it's difficult. It's always easy to say, and I'm sure you've heard that many times, but us thinking, you know, that because we put it, or we intend to put customer experience first, it just really does not translate into the customer realizing that that's the case if we're missing the execution there.
Well, when you say that, there was a book that was written by Chip and Dan Heath called Made to Stick a few years back. And in that book, Made to Stick, it talks about, I think, what you're referring to, and that is something that they say is the curse of knowledge. We know how our experience is supposed to be. We know how our experience is supposed to be laid out and executed, and how the customer journey is supposed to happen. We know all of that, therefore they know that too. Right?
Absolutely.
That's our curse. So what is the potential detriment when you start thinking about the customer experience when you, unfortunately, have that curse of knowledge in place?
Rephrase that. Let me make sure I understand you're asking that, Jim.
Sure. So for me, it's I'm not listening to myself. I'm not doing the things that you are saying need to have happen in order for us to make sure that the customer is engaged. So we think the experience is exceptional. You talk about, a lot of people talk about the gap as far as even in senior level leaders and organizations, they say, hey, we're 80% of our experience is excellent, and customers are saying, no, it's more like 8, right?
Right.
So what is the potential detriment to that?
Yeah, no, I got you. I'll be and give some full transparency. I think even right now, as our organization, as we evaluate that, we're in a bit of a pubescent stage of development for what I think I'd recognize as an intent to build out a robust customer experience model. CX is complex. So, it is very complex. It's not singularly measured through one data point. It's not a net promoter score. It's not a CSAT survey. It's, but my perspective is really that it's a couple of different things, and one of which I call like the mini rule. Mini, M-A-N-Y, and mini, M-I-N-I. It's an aggregate of just several micro moments of impressions and interactions that generate this experience, right? It's the combination of all these things. So in that mini rule, how do you make sure that our teammates, your frontline teammates who are engaging with customers on a day-to-day basis, that they recognize it's not the big problems, it's the micro moments that you have with your customers to make that impression? How do you create these levers that truly spotlight maximizing these mini moments? And I think that's where it starts when you really want to uncover the gap. And that's difficult. It's difficult to do, but it goes back to my pillars. I'll continue to lean into those. It's the extraordinary time investment with your team. When you really understand and you take the time to give that level of detail, that granular messaging, and then spotlight, recognize when that's happening, I think that's slowly when you begin to see the tides turn for the perspective, the impression that your customers have on their true experience and their interaction with your company.
I would dare to say you're talking about maybe being early stage. I think you just explained that in a very sophisticated and a very understandable way. So thanks for doing.
Thank you. Absolutely.
It leads me to believe there's a lot of people, when you start talking about, aspirations and, wanting to deliver and have the intent to deliver an exceptional customer experience, and a lot of emerging leaders out there. What advice would you give them when it comes to leading an experience that makes an impact?
Yeah, I'd say from an advice perspective is don't, and maybe, again, this is all my perspective, but don't get too technical. At the end of the day, there's so much data. There's a cacophony of data out there around, all the different levers and metrics and, just so much noise. I think if you don't lose sight of the simple things, and for us, it really is just focusing on these moments. How do you create impressions? And maybe it's our beverage industry, because we use that same terminology with how we want our customers to engage with our brand and create these impressions with our brand. So think about when you take an occasion to eat dinner with your family and Coke is a part of that. That's an impression. or when you're at a game or a sporting event, and you take the time to consume our product, that's an impression. And so we really, we do lean into how we create these impressions with our brand. Well, as a leader of CX, it's no different with just in general contact center. What are the impressions we create with our customers? So I would just ask and encourage all of those igniters, CX igniters, to get back to the simple things and figure out how you create simple, meaningful, amazing experiences or impressions with your customers. I think that's a start.
I think that's Raz Barnwell. I've enjoyed my time with you today. How do the CX Igniters get in touch with you?
Sure. So I am accessible through email, raz.barnwell@cokeconsolidated.com. And then my phone number is 704-557-4389. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Raz Barnwell, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
My pleasure, and same to you, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Customer Service Weekly podcast. Please rate, review, subscribe, follow, and share the Customer Service Weekly podcast and register for a free membership at customerserviceweekly.org to get the latest updates on how you can help ignite the CX spirit everywhere.